Hello there. As I'm now in the office here at Academy Effects, the company I've just started up. Thought I'd stick one of the speed sculpts I just do warm up on the morning. So we'll watch that in a second. It's 45 minutes, it's actually about 42 minutes. Enjoy, but do remember it's just something I do just to warm my hands up in the morning. Now you'll notice I'm not using the insurance. Reason for that is I am sick to death of carrying that bloody Cintiq around the world. And it does sort of screw your shoulder up. So after being over in Dublin for about 7 months, I got used to using these again. So the Cintiq's in my cupboard at the moment. I'm not even using it. So enjoy this.
Righty-ho, so we've got a model there that it's basically just the base mesh, the human head base mesh in Mudbox, just twiddle around a little bit, nothing major. I think that's within everybody's capabilities. Now, when I do my initial sculpt in the morning, it's never usually a one that turns out tremendously well, because my hands are always, I'm not really in the mood to sculpt early in the morning. I used to sculpt in the early hours, as a lot of you know. So I haven't really yet got in the swing of things, which is a bit funny, bearing in mind I spent ages while over in Dublin, working as 3D supervisor on Last Days on Mars, doing it during the day. But it is different when you're working for somebody else and when you're working for yourself. Now, this is the second week I've been in Academy Effects, so I did a little diversion into R&D land for a few days. But if you've been seen on Vimeo, then you'll know what I'm talking about. Otherwise, well, we'll just leave that pending. Don't spoil the surprise. So you can see the first thing I normally do is, there's Glenn just pumped up. Sort of nail the eyes and the cheekbones. Now, as you saw on the intro video there, I do have a skull on my desk. He's called Bob. Now, Bob isn't just there to freak people out. It's actually good to have some sort of physical reference next to you. So, like a lot of sculpts, in fact, I think most people are like this, to be honest. When you're working from a low-res cage or one of the default heads, something like that, it's not unusual for it to basically look shit until the end. Now, there's a video fold there. You'll notice that one thing I've started doing lately is going beyond the sort of wings of the nose, right? Because you'll see why as it gets progressed later on. In fact, instead of about 11 minutes, it should look ballpark, so I know what the hell I'm doing. Because whenever I start these things, I've got no idea in my head what I'm going to do, because it's what spoils it otherwise, you spoil the surprise. Now, I've been very unprofessional and left Twitter running, but that's what I normally do during the day. I have it running in the background. But you never know what's going to pop up, and someone might ask a question, or there might be somebody saying, is anybody free at the moment to do this particular job or something, So it's always worth keeping. Now, you'll also notice, it's been quite a while, hasn't it, since I put any of these up. So as we progress onwards, you'll notice I've changed the way I sculpt considerably. But if you've watched my videos over the years, you know that quite regularly I change the way I work. Stuff's getting bored, to be honest, because it doesn't matter what you're sculpting, but if you're sculpting day in, day out for weeks and months and years on end, eventually you do get a little bit tired of the same thing. So sculpting in a new way helps keep it fresh. Now, I wasn't happy with the nose on this sculpt at the end. As usual, I'm doing my playing around with proportions, but this sort of head shape is fairly much a standard for digital sculpt if you're doing like an ogre type character. Now, notice the upper lip there, right? It's like an extended mustache. I think a 70s porn star mustache, right? And that normally helps you where you get the volumes. Now you can see there, that's what I've just put in there before was indentation under the lower lip. Now I could get away with that being considerably deeper, but normally I don't play around with it too much until I know where the hell I'm at. Now you can see I'm doing a lot of the adding masses at the moment. Now I should say there's sort of an element of do as I say, not as I do here, because as I just start marking where the jawbone is going to be, and the master and things like that, I've been doing this for quite a while, so by now I know where certain ballpark sort of, parts of the human skull and anatomy are, so I don't have to do what I call join the dots and paint it all in layer by layer anymore. But to get to that stage, you've got to basically go through all the sort of crap, Now, here's a tip for the eyelids. If you want your eyelids looking right, there's two ways of doing it that I find work best. There's this way here, or the alternate way, which I do on a lot of the other sculpts, like the proper ones, that for clients and stuff like that. I will put the lower lid in first. Now, why is that? Because if you look at your eye, the lids rattle around this squashed sphere that is your eye, but the bottom lid is under the top. In fact, one of the most important shapes that you will see when it comes to sculpting a head is the triangle, because same as the upper lip is effectively wrapped around the lower lip. At the corners you have sort of like a triangular shape that you could carve out. The same with the eyes. Now the eyes on this I was sort of playing around with, I'm trying to get something interesting, but I'm also bearing in mind that it's my warm-up, so I don't really want to go too far. You'll notice I have a different UI that I use now. This is just one that makes sense to me. Feel free to use whatever you want in Mudbox 2014, which is what this is. Of course, I'm on the betas and all that stuff, so this is sort of old news to me, effectively. You see these. That's me making them dance along to the music. I do that quite a lot. People do think that I'm a bit crazy when I'm working in places and they see me doing stuff like that. Now, this is where you'll see me start to use masks, freeze brush. I still call it masks after all these years, because it's, I've been using Mudbox since version 1, but properly, I suppose you could say, since version 2009, which came out in 2008. And I still refer to it as a mask, same as I would in ZBrush. And yes, I do use both. I think in this day and age, you've got to. It's a very stupid sculptor that can only sculpt in one package. I can sculpt in that and 3D Core and things like that. In fact, all of these I should put a 3D Core video up just for the sake of it. So I think it's the one thing I haven't covered in video, really. So you can see here, I'm trying to get the lids right. Because there is a slant to the way the upper and lower lids lie. I'm also just tucking that bottom lid just down a bit, just so it's not flat. One of my pet hates in digital sculpting is when things look like you've got a guy who looks like he's been hit in the face by a shovel. The human face is quite pointy. And even if you're doing an ogre like this, it's based on human anatomy, so you've got to try and find a bit of a middle ground. You can see there, we've got something that's fairly interesting in about 8 minutes. Once you've got that stage, you know where you're at. And this, after that, it's easy. It's just the random bits. Now, what I'm doing, you see here, I use the freeze brush, and that's the area I'm going to touch. Then I invert it with Shift and I. Then take a nice big bulge brush. When I actually select the bulge brush, and then just make it come out a bit more. So there I go, freeze brush, and I see I'm trying to fade it off. And then I have just realised there that I haven't got the bulge brush on. You can use the hotkeys, because the bulge brush be on this, it would be, let's say, 6, 9. It would be 9 on the way I have it set up. Because if you look at the top layer there, the sculpt brush should be 1, the grab brush should be 2, knife would be 3. So you can use them as hotkeys as well. I have not that many hotkeys. If I'm toggling between smooth and hard shaded mode, I have that set to a full stop. I have the freeze brush set as my backslash, because on an English keyboard in the UK it's right next to Shift, and as you spend a lot of your time hovering around Control and Z and things like that, it's something that it makes sense to me. So you can see there, this is another one I'm doing. Now this one I went a little bit far and then had to back it off, but that's the whole point of a warm-up. When you find a lot of these parts of the face are quite easy when you find there's like an apex on the cheekbone, where once you know where that lies, that apex, you can see there, you can see the corner forming there. Right? And what I do is I'm accentuating it, and then I'll back it off and fiddle around with it. you've watched my videos over the years, you see that I've actually went a fairly full circle now. I'm back to using the freeze brush, and even back to the old days when I used to use, masking and with control key and all that and ZBrush. So I've came full circle of the way I sculpt, because in a way this gives a more natural result. I find it's not as harsh. I'm not a big fan of things with very harsh, sharp detail, because it's not usually, if you do a 3D scan of something or you have a look at one, there's not a lot of really, really sharp detail in a human face or an animal face or anything like that. So yeah, it might look cool with a bit of cavity shading, but it doesn't make it correct. Cool and correct are two entirely different things. So you can see there, I just smoothed it over afterwards. So we've got some nice forms there. What are we at? 11 minutes. So allowing a minute for the video intro. You get about 10 minutes, It's not that hard. Now, as usual, and I know some people always peg me on this one, and they are quite correct, the one thing that I always screw up on more times than enough is the bloody ears. Now, in this case, I'm at way too low resolution. But again, this is another reason why you do warm-up sculpts. You do it so that you don't have to do everything else. Making mistakes on this one. So, I don't want to go into cartoon sort of Shrek land with the ears. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it's not my style. If I had more geometry there, I probably could have got this bang on again. I don't like using the, like the ear sort of vector displacement maps and things like that, because I like to be able to say that, well, I've sculpted, the models I make. But saying that, if I'm working in production, then a lot of the things that I do, I'll use this sort of stencils, and vector displacement stencils, things like that, because it makes sense from a production point of view. Now, I'm just tucking these easy because they do look like they're sort of glued on the side of his head. We don't want him looking like a sort of ogre version of Barack Obama. Not that there's anything wrong with Barack Obama, of course, but he does have rather sticky out ears. But I did play around with the idea of converting this into a more realistic version of Shrek. It isn't. It's an idea I'll throw up if somebody wants to give it a go. I'm transforming that without the hotkeys, by just holding down the X key. Right, hold the X key down, and then middle, left, and right buttons. So the left is move, middle is it rotate, whatever. You'll work it out. I'm just sorting this into place for the eye. Now the eyes are not here, right? But in this case, out speed sculpt, it will do. So I'm just trying to get this in the right place. Lock selection. You can see I'm a little bit slow today because it's just the first warm-up always is slower than everything else for the rest of the day. I do have my music on always when I'm sculpting, because me without music, I'm not really that productive. If you see me live, you'll notice that I'm a lot slower live when there's no music playing in the background, unless I'm humming and singing along something in my head. It slows me down. It gives me motivation and stuff, and it helps to keep you in the right frame of mind and positive and stuff. Because I always say that half the battle, to be honest, with sculpting is belief. It's like anything else not. If you believe that you're going to do something well, you usually will. If, however, you think you're going to screw up, then it'll become a self-fulfilling prophecy. Now, what you could do there is paint the lower lid in, and then just pull either corner out a little bit from on the upper layer, just to accentuate that thing. But you see that triangle on the outside corner of the eye? So I mean, the triangles play a really big part in sculpting in these shapes. I think a lot in three-dimensional shapes. So to me, the whole brow and cheek area is one volume that I can actually see in my head, doing a little turntable, so I know exactly what I'm going to do with it. So I'm effectively just adding bits to it. It's already there. I'm just bringing it out, I've been sort of putting a bit more work in at the eyes. It's in general, because I spent years I do often what I call standing eye, so I know that there's an eye there and what the basic shape of it is. But the trouble is, other people don't realise that, and they think that you can't do eyes. So, well, that's right, not that I'm a mind reader or anything. So, to me, it makes more sense. I use off headbanging again to infected mushroom, in case you're wondering what the music was. I'm going to carve that out under there a bit more. And I've completely forgot what I was talking about. It's probably because I need caffeine. Actually, I've been doing really well. For those that are wondering, I no longer have the intake of a small country, my caffeine. When I was over double, I got down to eventually not one cup of coffee, or even a can of Coke, which I think personally is pretty damn bloody groovy. Now I'll have about 3 or 4 a day, that's it, you know. But the days of high caffeine intake are gone for me. Again, I'm trying to just fade this off and get the right shape. Now that shape isn't correct for the chain, to be honest. That's something I did screw up on. But again, as I say, that's the whole point of doing these warm-up sculpts. You do your screw ups in the initial one. Now I'll just get the grab brushes, move it out a bit. Now I do play around with anatomy and size and placement of whether it be muscle groups or the skull and things like that, just to get something interesting. So he's looking all right there, you know. He's got the point where he's not exactly going to show me up, sort of thing. And I'm just here painting in with the freeze brush where some of the folds and muscle masses and fat are going to be, and a nice big brush, and then smooth over the top of it. You see, you're getting. It's not as harsh as the way that I spent sculpting for years with the whole sort of wax brush thing, and you know, I still do that, but I'm less inclined to do stuff like that unless I have to. Now I'm not going to put all the widdly detail in this, and I'll tell you why, because there's no bloody point. Oh, he's off head banging again. It's obviously a good song. There's a few things I would probably change with the sculpt if I was doing it properly. I would put some more work into the eye because they still look a bit thin to me. The skull itself, there's absolutely zero work going on that. You know, there's no planes or there's nothing interesting going on. Which is sort of the reason why to me, the face is more important on this than anything else. I'm trying to do something interesting with the nose, but at the moment it's not going anywhere. I was never completely happy with the nose on this. Yeah, that doesn't look very good at all. Actually, I always find it interesting watching sort of back on things that I've sculpted. I often learn more, you know, where I've went wrong on a sculpt watching back than when I'm doing it. It's just the way it goes, you know. I mean, everybody's different, but it's always the old thing that if you're learning somebody else or showing somebody else, you end up picking things up. That's a awesome little trick for those that don't realise. You can right click up, you know, on the menu bar at the top there and just get rid of bits of the interface that you don't want. So sometimes I don't want the properties window there all the time. So that means I've got just the object list on that side. I'm just going to start putting some folds and stuff. I might as well get the square brush, which of course I have set up as a rake with that nice lined stamp that ships from Mudbox, and stick everything on 100. You know, so you can, you know, get rid of the stamp spacing, stick the intensity up to 100, and off you go. And that's a true rake because it averages form. It doesn't add or take away. So this one thing that I think to be honest, ZBrush could do with a really good rake. You shouldn't be adding any volume if you're trying to ape a traditional workflow. Then you should be trying to make it as near that as possible. Now I'm making a right old botch with this bloody ear. I really am. I said I'm getting to the point where I'm going to start covering my eyes and looking through my fingers in a minute. But again, you can't make, you know, they're breaking a few eggs, but sometimes I find you can get so into the flow of the rest of the sculpt that when it comes to things like the ears, at least for me anyway, it's like something in my brain goes missing for a little while. That's often why I'll come back to a sculpt if I'm doing it, you know, probably I'll come back and I'll give myself a break till later on the day or the next day, and it means you can often get more done. But saying that, there's times like when I'm working where I've had to do a highly complex model, fully, you know, textured and even lit, and everything in a day, you know, which is, that's no exaggeration, not always present. It's good to see doing the speed sculpts one thing. Doing something in production when you've got approvals and things is completely different. But where this comes in handy, and I've been saying for bloody years, is if you can sculpt fast, it means when the shit hits the fan and you have a tight deadline, you know that you can possibly do it. You know it's possible. It's something you can do. It's not a completely impossible thing. But it's usually a good idea to not do speed sculpt type thing in production, although there's times you've got to, because maybe it's sort of TV series or a film or something with a low budget and they can't afford 6 months, you know, or a month of you dicking around in Mudbox, ZBrush or 3D course. They just need something done for, you know, ready to put in scenes and be rigged and stuff the next day, which I always find it ironic that often your riggers get longer to play with your model, as it were, than you do when you're making a sculpt mode. If you're working on huge projects, you know, more power to you. Great if you spend a long time on something, go for it, you know. But unfortunately, I think in a way, because I'm known to work fast, people expect me to work fast, and I have to keep getting faster, because after a while, people sort of get not bored, but they get used to that speed and they expect you to be faster again. And the last sort of 12 months, you know, I realised, you know, that not down to having a personal challenge, but how fast I can go when I have to, when somebody's breathing down my neck. So it's sort of a, as I say, it's a double-edged sword. So at the moment, I've spent years of my life sculpting rock and stone. Now, anybody who's listened to this from Screen Scene knows my feeling on this. This is the problem, right? You start doing something and you're really good at it, right? For whatever reason, I can sculpt rock and stone pretty damn well. Now then, after spending X amount of time, like a year, sculpting rock and stone on a project that never sees fruition, never sees release, if the word goes around the industry, hey, Wayne Robson's really good at rock and stone. So every time they have something with rock and stone that nobody else wants to do, guess who they call? That's right, me. And I've got to the point where I fucking hate it. I detest doing rock and stone. But the more I do it, the better I get. And the better I get, the more people offer it to me. And I don't like turning down work, to be honest. But, yeah, I am sort of... as much as I moan about it, it is sort of nice that I, you know, something I know that I can always turn my hand to. But saying that, you don't want to be doing shit like that all the time, right? It's like, yeah, it just plays with your head, man. There's so many different types of rock, stone and shit like that you can't just do one type. That's got nothing whatsoever to do with this. So yeah, I did tell you in the intro that maybe it would have been a good idea to turn me off and put some music on. Because there's not exactly a whole lot to say. Most of this is visual, you know what I mean? Just outlining some of these. I really should have put, you know, a bit more irregularity in the mouth and stuff. And it's things that I look at stuff and it's never ever perfect, ever in a million years. All I see is the problems. But it sort of warms your eye up for the rest of the day. This is where I started digging around with lighting and stuff, which is where mostly, yeah, he's off dancing again. It's getting to the point where I had myself a little coffee break. Yep. That's all my music. I was playing lots of Infected Mushroom and a metal, my mate Rudy Salzo one. So, I've got it to a stage now where, you know, normally what I'd say is, okay, that'll do, I'll archive that one. If I need a design like this, I'll just pull it out and apologise and continue with it. But if I'm doing something for a video, you can't leave it at that stage, right? Because people bitch about it. But which is quite right sometimes, you know what I mean? But it's like this is obviously very symmetrical. Because to be quite honest, this was what, ballpark in about 10 minutes. If you're doing stuff that's ballpark in 10 minutes, you're not really going to be doing it asymmetrically most times. And it obviously doubles the time, so a 10-minute sort of dig around becomes a 20-minute dig around, and everything else gets double the time. And that's all right if I've got the time to do it. But if I'm doing stuff for a video and it's a warm-up sculpt like this, then I really do not want to be, you know, throwing time down a big hole. So you can see I'm just this is the enjoyable stage really for me. This is just playing around. Now you'll notice that I use a few different curves, and it's taken, over the years I've refined them, so now I can set up Mudbox for me quite fast. I also make sure that I can get the effects I need to. Now if you're wondering about sort of setting up brushes for hard surface stuff, like so the more like ZBrush, right? Because I know not everybody likes to do hard surface. The way I like to do it all by hand. There's a wonderful thing that Neil Blevins stuck up on his website. So he's got how to set a few of the brushes up on that, and that should make it easier for people. I think that want to do some hard surface stuff, but a lot of the time to me, I'd rather do it by hand when I'm just doing stuff for me, just because I don't like things being too easy. I'll be honest with you. If it's too easy, it's a complete turn-off. All right? It's a bit like a woman. If a woman's too easy, it's a turn-off. There you go. Now we can go mad here, from now to bloody doomsday on detail, but I'm not going to. I'm going to take it to a certain level and leave it there and just start with something for the body. You could speak out and spend at least another hour just refining what's here at the moment and getting these forms perfect. I always think there's a big difference between what I call a ballpark form or mass and the way it needs to be on a final level. It's the reason why if you do any traditional sculpting, like you can spend ages just with a rake just refining a shape to get it perfect. And now digitally it's easier, if you know what I mean, to do a lot of the main stuff. So he's agreeing with us. But then there is a time when you've got to step back away from the machine, refresh your eye, do whatever, go make a coffee, have a walk, whatever, then come back with it and put the shape right that's wrong. Nothing's ever perfect. I've never done one perfect sculpt in my life, and I doubt I ever will. Perfection is something that's very difficult to achieve, and I don't think anybody has ever done perfect, to be honest. It might look perfect, but there's bound to be somebody who can see a problem. You'll notice that as you progress as an artist, your eye refines, and things that you initially thought you might see a piece of art, it's fantastic. Suddenly, you look at it 4 or 5 years later and you're thinking, Jesus, did I really think that was good? But that's the thing, the man on the street still thinks that's good, right? And the further you progress, the more you see sort of sculpts that everybody else will swear blind is fantastic, and you'll look and say, well, actually, you see that bit there, that's freaking terrible. But, there's a certain thing called politeness, and you don't say that a lot of the time, unless somebody's asking for a critique. And, there's times I'll look at stuff on mine, and I'll come back the next day and go, oh my God, what the hell was I thinking? Because we all have off days, There's nothing wrong with having an off day. See, I'm just bringing the properties panel up there, just so. Now look, this is a favourite trick of mine, because you can do all sorts of this, and that's just, if you look at the fall off I've got at the bottom, it's like that very sort of, it looks like a molehill, like a big molehill, because it has that line on the edge. On the outside edge, you can do all sorts of groovy things, and with wrinkles and stuff, really easy, If I just go in there, I can do a couple of these little things, and fade them off, and stuff like this, it's, you can go, from now to bloody doomsday with this stuff, but here it clicks is just me shrinking down my timeline so I know where the heck I'm at. Right, there's about 14 minutes left. I've still got the body and the other stuff to do. Now, I won't cover the Photoshop side because there's not a lot of bloody point, to be honest. It's fairly easy to do. It's basically levels. Now, under the chin, the best way to think of that is sort of like a square funnel. You know, a two-part funnel. You have the main sort of, think of a flat part of the front of the chin and then two planes that go at the side of the corner of the chin. Now that goes down to where I'm putting it now. Then from that you have the lines that come further down. Now it's fairly simple to do for a human. Right? When you start doing it on creatures, you've got to keep an eye on the underlying anatomy. Now while on the head, I know exactly what the end is doing. You know, I'll just screw that bit up. It'll all come together in the end. My idea for the sort of clavicle, you know, where the deltoids was, basically the skeletal structure was a bit less defined in my head, which is why if you notice the quality suddenly dips a little bit once I start getting onto that part, because it's like anything else. Knowledge is power, right? And if you're not 100% sure of what you're doing, that's when you start making mistakes. Which is where, to me, the big mistakes come from on this. The big mistakes came on the shoulders and the front. So you see, one of the techniques I've used for years is just basically doing a series of lines, like guidelines. And then it's like, join the bloody dots, you know. I've been saying for years that some stuff in sculpting is really bloody easy. So that nice little knobbly bit behind the ear. Now I'm going to put all this in here, which is like a cloak that wraps around that muscle there. You'll be surprised to know that I rarely think of muscles by their name, by their proper name, you know. Because to me, I know it's a muscle, I know where it joins and where it's going to, but it's a shape, it's a form. That's the most important thing. If you've got the form in your head, who gives a flying shit what it's called? You know. You could call that the lesser spotted fuck monkey, right? And it doesn't make any difference, it's still a bloody form. Now, I know some people get really pissed off when I say things like that, but it's fucking right? It doesn't matter what it's called. They're just names that make it easier for us to identify with them. But if you want to call it, you know, the lesser spotted fuck monkey muscle, then go right ahead, because you know what? I'm not going to complain about it. And anybody that is, you could argue maybe they're just getting a little bit prissy about it. I don't care if it sounds more impressive or anything else. Yes, it makes it easier for you to sort of talk to other artists about things. But you know what? If you really have to, you can always look it up. There's plenty of anatomy books out there, especially online. Put the deltoid in. Which is, to me, I always hate doing these bits on these busts, because if you're doing full body, right, you can always look and mark off where the insertion points are. But when you haven't got those, you've got to sort of imagine it in ballpark in your head where this, you know, top of the, you know, bone is, things like that. And this is the bit where it's technically known as put the shit in that's supposed to be there, then make shit up as you're going along. So I thought I'd try here just isolating off the shoulder a bit, the whole shoulder unit, because I think this is a unit. So you have the shoulder unit and you have sort of the mouth unit and chest unit. That's how I think of it. And then it does become like gluing bits together on a model, you know. So I'm just bulking that up a bit. Get a bit smooth on it. Now at that point I probably should stop there and then add the chest in properly. But I didn't need quite as much, I think, as I've ended up putting in. Because you go too far and you'll see what happens. You eventually just get to the point where you are pissing against the wind, and it's some of the best skill you can have as an artist is knowing when to walk away. Because there's always going to be a point where you think you're going in the right direction and you're obviously not. Now, to me, I started going the wrong direction in this last few minutes. You know, it was the last sort of 5-10 minutes where to me it all went to shit. A lot of these little widdly bits, they're not things you can actually describe. It gets like a bad habit, if you know what I mean, because you know that if you mark that part of the mesh with this brush at that pressure sensitivity that way, you know you can get a pleasing effect. And a lot of that is just trial and error over the years, and eventually you remember. And the longer you do it, the more of these crazy little sort of tricks, I hate to call them tricks, but you know what I mean, they are in a way, it's just muscle memory you can use. Now you'll notice at some point I've managed to sort of bang him on the nose with the wax brush, so he's now got a very flat nose, which I'll have to go back and fix. I am trying to wonder at times what the hell was going through my head with some parts of this, because it does make me sort of laugh at times, because you know, it always makes me laugh when people are about something, say, oh, this is fantastic, and they, well, actually, no, it's not, it's pretty ropey. But as I say, to me, it's always, well, obviously I don't like that song. I always look at things, and I only ever see the problems, right? I never see the good stuff, because the very process of creating means that you only ever see the problems. At least it does for me. Take down level 2. Again, go back to the shoulder unit and have a play around and see if I can pull things around and make them look a bit nice, because you never know sometimes, right? You can say, oh, that's good and all that, but then you pull something a certain way out of accent or design, and suddenly, oh, that's much cooler. So it's just shaping these out. I do cheat sometimes with the shapes, because I'm not a slave to anatomy. To me, the anatomy is a tool that we use to help me to get a certain result. It is not there, you know, to be slavishly followed. Because if something's not looking bloody right, then sometimes reality needs a helping hand. Sometimes the sculptor needs a good slap across the side of the head, which is basically what I need at this point. But that's, you know, when you work on your own, there's nobody to give you sort of the proverbial slaps. So it's sort of thing that I would like to come back to something like this again and redo it properly, just to see where it goes, you know. Not happy with that torso, not be at all. But it'll do, I think. So while I'm messing around with that, and hopefully if you've made it at the end of this, listen to me rattle on like an absolute lunatic, then congratulations, you win a prize. Well, you don't actually win a prize. At this point, I spotted the nose. So he's got two really big stickers on the end of his nose. So again, this is a good example of how I use the ray actually. It's you see how it's averaging the form out. And I'm concentrating on those edges, obviously, because they're the main part of the problem, and then just go over it, and then increase the size of the brush, smooth, bosh, done. Start playing around with materials. I love playing around with materials. Materials are cool. Just because it makes it a bit easier for us, you know what I mean? It's just something that as I keep saying, it keeps the interest there. Because I find it, I don't know, distraction is the right word, but it gives me time away from looking at a model on a sculpting level to look at it on a presentation level. Well, nearly not far off the end of the video now, which is good because I really need something to drink, so my throat's stinging like an absolute bastard. Right, stick your uptime down to 0, otherwise you will have a war between the cavity and the ambient occlusion and the tone map. Tone map will keep trying to make cavities lighter, and of course the ambient occlusion saying no, I'm going to stay black, and it just gets lighter and lighter and blows out. I've covered that a load of times, and hopefully somebody has taken it on board by now. There I am waiting for the shadows to come on, but they didn't, because I didn't hit it properly. Here we go again. Hey, there we go. Right. Now to me, the shadows were a little bit dark, and one way I'll sort that is in a minute. I'll add a point light. I'm just clearing around this because it's too shiny. You know, if it's too shiny, it blows out too much. The ironic thing is I had a really good presentation material that I used back in Mudbox 2010, and I've never been able to get it bang on the same since. So it's quite ironic, really. So there's the levels, down and up. Because I know some people like that sort of thing. This is me digging around again, trying to save the unsavable. Wayne's Rule 1, if something doesn't work, sticks to all the wiggly bits on it. Well, actually, it doesn't work at all. What it does is make it more obvious in many cases. But let's say sometimes I always try to hold my hand up. If I've screwed up like I've done that bit there, I'll hold my hands up and say, yeah, I screwed up. Yeah, what's the worst that can happen? I'm not going to get shot. It's not like, you know, guys that have to go to places like Iraq and places in Afghanistan where they screw up and get shot in the head, you know. What we do is fairly innocuous, really. On that score, we just get the, you know, we make a mistake, it doesn't look right. Well, oh dims, you know, you just start and do it all again, you know, and you've learned from the first. So, time round as it were. Well, that was just a randomly a wonderful idea, he says, yawning. That I'm going to give it a go, actually, in a minute when I finish this. In fact, let me just write that down. So if you hear writing, that's what it is. Right, now I know what I'm doing. Here we go with the point light. See, I've stuck on the show light and the transforms and all that, just so I can get the position on it. I'll tail that off. It'll be nice to have a sort of same controls over the lights as you do in sort of Maya and 3D Max and stuff, you know. So you can see that's basically where it's hitting. I want to stick a brown light on for no other reason than why not? Plus, it helps with the lighting, so you know, because I've worked with a lighter as well, so there's all sorts of crazy little things I'll do just because I know it gives a nice effect. This is where we'll start sticking material on the eyes. Now, I always end up sticking a black material on. Shiny black material, but the thing is, that one there, to me that doesn't look right, and I'll tell you why, because, you know, I get that directional light, and the point light is so small, you're thinking that's pointless, you know, you can't see it all the time, so what I do is just take the gloss and broaden it out a bit, just so it's a bit more obvious that it's there, you know, because it's never going to look like an eye, so I might as well make it so people can only see that it's shiny. Add a bit of reflectivity. Can't bugger it, we've got 0.1. Right. Lighten them up a bit, because black is a bit too dark, you know. Very few things are true black. There you go. Hey, turning round and round.